So this is actually part 3 of Did Bill Clinton Suicide Epstein in Prison? We're looking at the Clinton crime family's capacity to kill, and I was asked to give more information regarding my research on this subject. And in the other videos we have talked about the boys on the tracks. That was my introduction to the Clinton body count. I described in part 2 various witnesses, associates, friends of the boys, Don Henry and Kevin Ives, who ended up brutally murdered by, we suspect, the state police of Arkansas that were working as the Clinton crime family's enforcement arm when they were guarding the drug drops that were coming in, the cocaine. So I'm going to continue to develop that story, more about the boys on the tracks. Left off where Linda Ives, the mother of one of the boys, was contacting Bill Clinton, and he wasn't responding to her. He was insisting on the judgment of Dr. Malik, who decided that the boys had smoked weed, lay side by side on the tracks and got run over. That was the cause of death. So Linda is still pursuing Clinton, and in mid-1990 he made an appearance at Saline County Courthouse. Linda was in the crowd. As Bill Clinton moved along, greeting people, he got closer to Linda, realizing she would finally be able to address him directly. She felt her heart thump. Stood in front of Linda, Bill Clinton said, "Let me shake your hand." And he's been fobbing her off now for years, refusing to speak to her, so she's caught him by surprise. "Yeah," Linda said, offering her hand. "I'd like to shake the hand of the man who's refused to see me for years." Taken by surprise, Clinton paused. After introducing herself, Linda said she'd been trying to get him to address the problems with Dr. Malik ever since the bizarre ruling in the death of her son. "What if we brought in a panel of out-of-state pathologists to review what he does on a case-by-case basis?" Clinton said. "Why don't we just fire Malik and get a medical examiner who can do the job right? I think it would save the state money." Clinton nodded and moved on, terminating the conversation. Later on, a reporter who picked up the conversation took Bill Clinton to task over it. He stated that he thought Linda had been satisfied by his response. I said previously, the reaction of the Clintons when something goes wrong is to deny it, deny it, deny it, or repeat a lie, repeat a lie, repeat a lie. I never inhaled. I never got a blowjob in the White House. So, when told by a journalist that Linda still had an issue, Clinton acted surprised. Linda could only wonder what Bill Clinton and other powerful people didn't want uncovered that Ken and Don had stumbled onto that night in the woods near Mena, Arkansas. Loads of docs on Mena, Arkansas on YouTube. If you Google it, there's docs that go for hours and hours describing the CIA, Reagan Bush admin, Contra financing drug operation. So, I hadn't finished on the Clinton body count with the people surrounding this case. The next one, a friend of the boys, Booney Bearden, disappeared. His body was never found. In April 1989, Jeff Rhodes was killed before he could testify. Shortly before his death, he called his father in Texas to say that he knew too much about the murders and he needed to get out of the state. His body was found in the city dump, killed by 2 gunshots in the head. They'd also attempted to cut off his head, hands and feet and set him on fire in the dump. In July 1989, Richard Winters was silenced by a blast from a shotgun. And so was Jordan Kettleson in June 1990. And on and on and on it goes. The Clinton body count racks up. If powerful people thought attention to the murders was going to go away, they were mistaken. The scale of the murders was attracting nationwide attention. And I already previously written a book in my War on Drugs series, American Made. I'm going to put up the chapter from the audiobook of American Made, it's available on Amazon, about the Clintons' involvement in cocaine and their own cocaine use. Apparently one time Bill Clinton damaged his septum, goes down the hospital, Hillary Clinton shows up, basically threatens the nurses with blue murder if any of them says so much as anything about Bill's cocaine abuse. Now this is how rigged the system is. Linda is hoping for justice from the Arkansas state system, and Dan Harmon is the prosecutor in charge of the grand jury. So in the beginning she thinks he's a good guy, but wait until you find out what kind of people Clinton's got working under him. Shortly after the deaths of the boys, Harmon had volunteered to help Linda. Impressed by his passion, down-to-earth style, quick wits, Linda had welcomed his assistance. Harmon had persuaded a judge to name him the special prosecutor to supervise the investigation. So if you want certain results from an investigation, you put your own people in charge. Just look at the JFK assassination. The investigation into that is a complete joke, as I discussed with David Icke. In the first year or so, spending lots of time together, working on the case, Linda had grown close to Harmon, who she trusted completely. But 3 years later, Linda realized that the only thing Harmon had achieved was to parlay her tragedy into generating publicity and political support for himself. No one had been indicted for the murders, nor had Harmon discovered any solid leads. Linda felt duped. But not only was he trying to make a name for himself and just capitalize on the publicity around the case, this gets far more devious and dangerous. Unknown to Linda, while Harmon was supervising the grand jury, the federal authorities were investigating him for drug crimes. Before the deaths of the boys in 1987, informants had reported Harmon for buying and selling drugs and providing dealers with protection. This is what I've been saying all along. Drugs are kept illegal, and the authorities run the drugs. They can decide who to arrest, they can decide who to allow to deal the drugs, and they put that cash in their own pockets. They skim from that, they raid the competition, they put cash in their own pockets, raiding the competition. I just interviewed an ex-Scotland Yard detective, and he told me all this was going on in London. So that podcast will be coming up on my series of true crime podcasts here soon. Got the Mexican cartel guy and the ex-cop. In the middle of the night, Harmon and officers from the Benton Police Department went kicking in doors to find the informants. So Harmon has learned about his own informants. Harmon summoned the informants to testify at the grand jury he was supposed to be helping Linda with. He used the court process to find out the extent of their knowledge and to taint them as murder suspects in case they were ever subpoenaed to testify against him. So the state of Arkansas, Bill Clinton's the governor, he's running the show. They've assigned a prosecutor to the case of the boys on the tracks that is running a drug operation while he's the prosecutor. So there was a woman investigating this. Harmon went after Gene Duffy, the head of a federally funded drugs task force. So in America, the feds are a separate legal jurisdiction from the state. So a fed is investigating Prosecutor Harmon for drugs. And what do you think is going to happen to her? Now this is not conspiracy theory, this is testimony from Gene Duffy, the head of a federally funded drugs task force. Like I said, All the stuff I've got on the Clintons has come from police, ex-bodyguards, ex-CIA, and now we've got a Fed. She and her undercover agents were assigned to eliminate drugs in Arkansas. That bitch is crazy, Harmon told Linda. Swore that he would get her fired. As Jean learned more about Harmon's drug enterprise, Harmon stepped up his campaign against her, culminating with a warrant being issued for her arrest. If there's someone going up against you, and you're working for the deep state, or you're just deeply corrupted like this guy, working for the Clinton crime family, attached to them, whatever capacity, you criminalize the potential witnesses. So he's going to criminalize the witness. She will have no credibility to testify against him if he can criminalize her. Fearing for her life and the lives of her informants, Duffy went into hiding and fled to Texas. So a federal investigator is so scared of this tentacle of the Clinton crime family, she has fleeing for her life and hiding out in Texas. Now, tell me these people aren't dangerous. Here's a quote from Jean. And if people in law enforcement are watching this, and I know a lot do, perhaps they respect quotes coming from fellow law enforcement. I had no idea just how dangerous certain elected officials thought me to be, Jean said, until a brutal media campaign launched against me. For months there were daily allegations of everything from misspending funds to ordering illegal arrests. Every attempt was made to keep me from running the drug task force. We were shut down completely for several weeks during a bogus state police investigation. Again, you have the wolves investigate the wolves. In spite of crippling disruptions, the task force was making significant discoveries about drug trafficking in central Arkansas, some of which led to the very people who were conducting the massive media campaign against me. We discovered that drug trafficking in central Arkansas was linked to public officials in frightening proportions, yes, all the way up to the governor's office. A great number of people came to me with testimony about astonishing criminal activity of very high-level public officials. Many were willing to testify before the federal grand jury. Although there was an abundance of evidence, and word kept reaching me from the grand jury that they were ready to indict, no indictments came. I can provide information that has tentacles to Governor Clinton's administration. This isn't me, this isn't David Icke, this isn't a conspiracy theorist, this isn't Alex Jones. This is a federal task force investigator. I can provide information that has tentacles to Governor Clinton's administration. So Jean and Linda, the mum of the deceased kid, were both filmed for a documentary called The Clinton Chronicles. I think that one is still on YouTube. I'll put it in the link to the description box below this video. When Jean watched Linda in that video, she realized that Linda had lost her faith in Harmon. Linda watched the video in a state of shock and bewilderment as claims were made that Mena, Arkansas was a hub for international drug trafficking sponsored by the CIA and run with the approval and protection of the state of Arkansas under the former governor Bill Clinton. Could such grandiose claims be true, and if so, how did they factor into the death of her son? Jean and Linda met, they hit it off, they shared their files, they decided to team up and work with the FBI to try and get the murders solved. Some of the claims in the documentary did not seem so grandiose to Don Henry, the father of the other victim, the Boys on the Tracks, who had formulated his own theory about his son's murder, which was documented in the notes of Scott Llewellyn, a former drug task force member who had interviewed Curtis Henry. Llewellyn was convinced that Saline County was corrupt to the core and the deaths of the boys were being covered up. Curtis told Llewellyn the boys were in the field when a cocaine drop was made from an airplane. Curtis said that he had spent night after night at the crime scene and had noticed a small airplane making landings every week between 2 and 3 a.m. on a grass airstrip by the tracks. Curtis had given this information to the Arkansas State Police, who never followed up on it. And I wrote an entire book about Barry Seal called American Made, describing he was one of the chief pilots bringing the drugs in, flying these planes in, exactly as is described here. Llewellyn wrote, Curtis knows that there would have had to be someone present that Don felt comfortable around, or he would have run off into the woods. Curtis is positive that no one would have been able to get the drop on Don out there, because Don had hunted in that area for all his life, and he was too good an outdoorsman to be caught if he didn't want to be. There is also the possibility that the boys had been put up to meeting the shipment and stealing some of it by someone who knew about the cocaine operation and was offering them money to do so, and therefore the boys may have been a little too brazen in their attempt to get the shipment. This is what I've been saying all along. Those boys either tried to steal some drugs, or the guys protecting the drugs saw them and they didn't want any witnesses, no crime. They eliminated them and put them on the tracks. Either way, this is still Llewellyn now. Once the boys were apprehended, they were walked to the part of the tracks where they were laid, since it was close by. Curtis feels that at this point the men who had the boys began to beat them and interrogate them as to who had sent them out there, who knew they were out there, or who the third boy was, if there indeed was a third person who managed to get away. Then Kevin was smashed in the head with Don's rifle and he fell to the ground, possibly dead at that point. Don took off running and was chased for about 100 yards before being caught again. He was stabbed from behind while maybe being held when he did his corkscrew maneuver and came out of his shirt, turning it inside out. The stabbing either was that severe or he was knocked to the ground where his head was smashed open by one or several blows from his rifle. It's heavy stuff. Linda's hopes were further raised by a new officer, Deputy Brown, being assigned to investigate the boys' deaths. In May 1993, Brown interviewed Charlene Wilson, one of Gene's confidential informants. This is now, the Charlene Wilson stuff is now, she's going to testify that she was with Harmon, Dan Harmon, and doing drug drops. And also she's going to testify about the Clintons' drug activity that she witnessed. She partied with the Clintons. So maybe I'll put that in the next part if you guys want to see that. Next video I'll probably do is on the names in the little black book. Might give one or two a call just to see if these numbers are valid. No, I mean I got doxed, didn't I? And my number, I lost my phone number of 10 years because I got doxed. Not going to put these numbers out there online. That's not the right thing to do. Maybe just warn a few of the people that the numbers are circulating. Give them a heads up. Maybe they want to change the number. And Mick Jagger's on it, and he lives about 40 minutes away from me here in London. All right, so appreciate you enjoying all of the videos so far on Epstein. If you're enjoying everything, liking everything, please subscribe to the channel. There's a little image you can click on now in the corner of the video. It will allow you to subscribe right away to the channel. Got 5,000 new subscribers since yesterday, so never had such rapid growth. All the people supporting the channel. David Icke, since I interviewed him, that's really kick-started the subscribers as well. So Ike, Epstein, really got things in motion now. Goal is to try and get up to 1 million subscribers. So, you know, get me and Wildman out doing tours and doing talks across the country. If we get that much followers, that should be a definite thing. So, if you've got any questions, comments, post them below. Take care out there. Cheers from London.